Oh boy, we're gonna have a sermon today.
Am I starting it? Again,
You're gonna. And we're gonna be really like, it's gonna be like the most fun, casual, whatever it is.
Yeah, of course.
It's gonna go for a bit. All right. Start whenever you want.
3, 2, 1. All right. Hello. Welcome to a special live edition of the On the Corner podcast.
Oh yeah.
Woo! Saturday night.
It is
Saturday night here at First Pitch Arizona.
Yeah.
So I am Eric Smolsky. This is Nick Pollock.
Hi. What's going on? This is special.
This is special.
First one for Eric.
It is my first pitch. My first pitch.
Yeah. It is.
Yes, I'm very excited. This is our first live podcast as well.
That's true. And it's not Miles Nelson at First Pitch Arizona who took over the helm for 3 straight years.
Thank you, Miles.
Because he's here in the audience. You know. I feel like I'm hosting a roast, and I'm not going to do that, Miles. Absolutely not.
No.
But that would be amazing.
It's a special episode.
It might be a roast, though. This is a really weird one. And Eric, tell the people what we're doing.
Yeah. So we're going to go over Nick's top 100 starting pitchers, and some of mine if they also made Nick's top 100 pitchers. So the purpose of this is to discuss the top 100 pitchers, but to do it in a way where you get the opportunity to either ask us or to debate us or to debate Nick, and I can just sit and watch and enjoy it. But the idea is there's an open microphone right here in front of us. We are going to separate into, we have the top 25, and then we have 26 to 50, we have 51 to 75, 76 to 100. We have Nick's ranks on the left, we have my ranks on the right. I tried to highlight ones where we have like larger differences within that. And we can talk through some of the differences, why we have guys ranked where we do. If you think that a particular ranking is egregious or you just want to hear what we have to say on it, feel free to come up and ask us to talk about a particular player. If you want to debate about a particular player, feel free to come up to the microphone to debate about a particular player. You can line up or come around the side where Miles is. Again, Miles over there. And this is a show about you. Feel free to come up as many times as possible. All we ask is that after you speak, you cede the floor, let somebody else potentially come up. If nobody does, you can loop all the way around like Abe Simpson and come all the way back up.
Unless your name is, there's one exception. If your name rhymes with Fino Boris, then maybe you can get 2 questions in.
Yeah,
maybe Fino Boris.
He has to show up.
He has to show up. I know.
Yeah,
I know. I don't know if he loves us.
Is he?
Is he?
I
gone.
can speak loud enough that he can hear me at the bar.
Yeah.
All right, so we have 3 people lined up already.
Oh my gosh.
So we're gonna get this thing going.
Let's
you
go.
sir in the pink beanie. Why don't you come up to the front
and take the mic, which is actually really short.
Okay.
All right. What is your name, sir?
Paul Sporer.
Who are you?
I'm Paul Sporer.
And tell us more about yourself. Where are you from?
Oh, I do a podcast with a guy named Nick Pollock.
Oh, he's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's all right.
Yeah, he's not bad.
Anyway, I'll get it started easily for you. I don't necessarily want to debate, but obviously people are going to need to know what's up with Garrett Crochet at 3 for Nick and 5 for Eric, respectively.
Eric,
Again, just want to give you guys a platform to speak about your baby boy, Garrett.
Aw, thank you so much, Eric. Do you want to start with this?
Sure. So I'm obviously slightly less optimistic on Nick, but it's 5, right? Rather than 3. I even like this ranking for me is not. I know this weekend everybody's been, well, what if he gets traded? And I do think that there's a likelihood that he gets traded. But this ranking for me is not assuming that he does get traded. It's that Garrett Crochet is a very good starting pitcher. He's a very good starting pitcher who I think could be even better next year for a couple reasons. One, as was alluded to earlier this morning in the pitcher panel, there's an introduction of the sinker that was even better for him in the later stages of the year, and I think will just add to the depth of the arsenal. We also have a guy whose whole second half of the season was influenced by the way that the White Sox were tinkering with him, not letting him go more than 3-4 innings or whatever at a time. So he really only had half of a year as like a true starting pitcher workloads, etc. 6 wins with that. So I do think the win fear is slightly overblown. I know that he's not on a team where he's going to get like necessarily 16, 17 wins, but I think double-digit wins last year would have been feasible had he been a starting pitcher for the full season. It's going to be his second year as a full-time starting pitcher. He had, I believe, off the top of my head, it was 146 innings this year. So I don't really think we're looking at any kind of innings cap. Like I think you're looking at 160 pretty easily for him next year. So I think double-digit wins is pretty easy. And then as Nick also said to me once, it doesn't matter how many wins his team wins in games he doesn't pitch. If he's a really good starting pitcher and he's throwing 6 or 7 really good innings and they're getting a win, it doesn't matter if he wins 15 games and they win 20 on the season. He won 15 games. So even if he stays on the White Sox, I think there's a good chance that the fears of the wins are being overblown, and I'm happy to take 160 innings of Garrett Crochet in the top 5.
I mean, you said everything. That was great. But then you have also Zach Wheeler and Corbin Burns ahead. And the reason I don't, and I originally had this, we were both at Garrett Crochet for 5, was I see Tarek Skubal, Paul Skeens, and Garrett Crochet as the only 3 who could be the elite ratios and 30 to 35% strikeout rate guys for the entire year. That's just such a big difference to me, and I think the big pushback would be with Zach Wheeler and Corbin Burns. You should get a little bit more wins. You should get a little bit more volume. But what you're going to see in my rankings is I am putting less weight this year on expected volume as much as I can, because we just don't know. It is the hardest thing that we do. Yes, there are reasons we should say this guy should have more than this one, and we should have those little tiebreakers and everything. He should be leaning left and right. But my gosh, Garrett Cole was the one that was always going to be healthy. Everything is totally fine with him, and he just goes and does that. Sandy Alcantara proved himself as a workhorse. Everything is fine. This happens constantly. And at the end of the day, I just think of myself as a 12-team manager in the end of April, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to want Garrett Crochet in my team instead of Corbin Burns. I just know this. This is how we all act. This is what it is. And especially when guys get hurt in season a lot, you realize you just want the highest quality innings as much as possible. Because I think in the conversation of volume, we lose the fact that it's not 140 innings for the whole year. You get a replacement, and that replacement level value is so much higher in a 12-teamer than it is in your 15s, in your much deeper ones. I understand the DCs are going to have Garrett Crochet past pick 50 or so because that's a draft and hold. It's not taking into account any of the, when we talk about volume, if there's any expectation of decreased volume due to injury, they don't get a replacement. Your 12-teamer, you do. That's a huge, huge, huge difference in my view as well. So I just think, look, who are the 3 that are the top level of skills? And we haven't even talked about really, like, he throws 97 with elite extension, 4-seamer in the zone, getting strikes all the time. He has a cutter that comes right off of it that they can't tell the difference between. And then he just added this sinker going the other direction. Now they have a 33% chance of guessing which one this is. That is so hard. And even if they get it right, they still can't hit it. It's impossible. It's regardless of the changeup that you could add or the slider that you could mix in as well. We've seen that. He is so good. And I honestly feel like the White Sox just did the thing you want them to do so that he can go unhinged this year. I mean, that's what he just did. If you have a follow-up, there's a beautiful mic right here that might be a little short for Paul Sporer.
Also, Chris Towers this morning talked about a huge portion size of terrible food. And there's an argument that some of the best quality food you've ever had that's a slightly smaller portion size is actually incredibly healthy for you. And so you have to look at Garrett Crochet that way because the innings should probably be elite.
Yeah. What do you got, Sporer?
Because you talk about how great Garrett Crochet is and how great he looked this year, and we maybe should have known, right? Because he didn't just show this year.
Yeah.
There's hype here. Like there's been backing here. How do we get ahead of this?
Yeah.
To find the next guy that burst onto the scene, maybe got hurt a little early. Is it just like Yuri Perez or something? Like, how do we get ahead of the Garrett Crochets?
Great question. So I messed up actually at the beginning of this year. I wasn't the guy. Like this was a crop of a lot of pitchers who were making that adjustment from reliever to starter. Eric and I both were like, all right, AJ Puck and DL Hall. Those are the 2 we want. And what's actually kind of interesting about it.
I don't remember. And
I'm trying to
that,
spin
actually.
it. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, you forgot that one. I
don't
gotcha.
think I did that. Yeah.
What's important, and I jest a little bit, but it is somewhat true, that with DL Hall and AJ Puck, after their first start, which by the way was the opening weekend, if not like the first 3 days, I dropped them and moved on. And because of that, it opened up the roster spot early for Tanner Houck, for Jack Flaherty. And that's a big thing that happens. You're able to make that quick decision. That's important. I was not in on Garrett Crochet, though. I saw that first start against Atlanta, and I was out. I believe actually maybe it was the Tigers, or it was the Tigers and then Atlanta. So I saw the Tigers, and I saw him do well, and I didn't quite understand it yet. And I thought, but it's against Atlanta next, and I don't really want to do that, so I don't want to invest for 10 days because I don't want to hold on to a roster spot for 10 days. It was unwise because what I should have realized was how good that four-seamer would be because I didn't analyze extension well enough at the time. I didn't recognize a 7.5 feet of extension with 97 plus velocity with four-seamers over the plate are that good. That said, he didn't have his cutter. He didn't have his cutter for the first 6 games. It was sliders for the first 3, and then he had 3 bad starts, and then he went against the Twins and was like, oh, no, I got to do the Twins again. I'll have a changeup out of nowhere, and it was great. And then the next one, he moved away from the slider and started doing the cutter, and that just completely took off from there. So I actually remember after those 3 bad ones, everyone's like, we're dropping Garrett Crochet, and I am saying, like, don't pick him up. I'm like, no, now we pick him up. Like, it felt as if I was always just contrary, but it was like, no, the things that we want are here now. So that's the story about it, and I love that you brought that up because every year we got to learn something more about what the season teaches us. That has been a big lesson for me. High velocity with elite extension, with a fastball that gets over the plate, opens the door for like four-seamer and sinker. That is how Zach Wheeler is so successful. I've been trying to figure that one out for ages. That's his method. It's great.
Also, it's a simple matter of picking the wrong one, right? Like, we were open to the idea of converted relievers who were going to be starters. We didn't really care about the potential innings restrictions. It was buying into the talent and saying, okay, we believe that they can make this jump. It was believing in the wrong ones of the trio, right?
We had him in this top 70s thing too, by the way.
Yes. We were both in on King. He convinced me to be further in on King, but the draft cost was so different, right? The Crochet, DL Hall, AJ Puck, Reynaldo Lopez converted relievers, going to be starters. They're going in the final rounds of your draft. Who are you going to throw your dart? Who are you going to throw your dart at? DL Hall was my most rostered player, and I held on to him longer than Nick did, but it didn't work. But it's like, am I going to gamble on that next year? Yeah, probably. And we'll see. And
that's really the lesson too for me is, especially with those guys at the end that you drafted like in the SP 50s and later, you have to be quick. You have to be. The reason I have them ranked is because I'm willing to drop them. There's this idea of, I have this guy, I drafted him, so now I'm more invested, sunk cost, all of that. But you should be drafting him with the understanding, if I don't like this, I should feel fine dropping him. Yes, you're going to drop a guy that then is really good later in the year. But that's okay because you're going to then find someone else off the waiver wire. Maybe you don't like him, but you keep burning and churning, and you will land with that rotation. This is a tried and true method. This always happens. You have to have that open spot in your roster as much as possible so that you can have the thing that you definitely don't want to drop. You can make that easy decision.
Yes. Especially Nick and I both do rankings in thinking about 12-teamers. So that is something to keep in mind, too. It's like you might see people ranked here where their safety and security in a 5-teamer is far more enticing, and they're lower for us, and it's just 12 teams specific.
Okay, so
but we've made the world's greatest softball pitcher wait really long.
I know, we did.
To ask us
Chris Towers, you're up. No, just Ariel, please. Ariel Cohen, tell us about yourself, Ariel Cohen. Who are you?
Hi there. My name's Ariel Cohen.
We got that far.
So I appreciate the explanation that this is 12 teams, so some of the playing time is there. But this is a number 1 or number 2 pitcher, so you do have to consider it a little bit.
Absolutely.
3 guys I want to ask about.
Oh boy.
Okay, so 2 of them. Chris Sale, currently injured. I don't know. Jacob deGrom, I don't believe he's going to stay healthy all year. Sure. I'm a Mets guy, and if you have a Mets guy saying that, oh boy.
Yeah.
And the other one that I was surprised to see on here,
when do you not say that?
Shohei Ohtani, into the fire as number 8.
Okay.
Can you explain that one?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I do want to mention the Chris Sale thing. I want to give massive props to this guy. If you didn't realize that Eric Samolsky had him at like 27 or something before this season, you should, because he was the one pushing as hard as he can. I had to push him up my ranks. I never reached as high as Eric, and he completely saw that one. Now, you're right about, especially about Chris Sale, and I'm still trying to figure out how much I want to weight that back injury that he had, right, that he held it. Here's the thing. Chris Sale, with how – no, of course you're not.
Well, right.
That's a big conversation, I think, about rankings and 12-teamers. And with Chris Sale specifically, the skill is Tarek Skubal, Skeens, and Crochet. I don't know the exact player rater of him, but he was like 1 with Scooble or something like that. It was insane how good he was. There's a lot of reasons to also believe that his fastball got very fortunate this year. The changeup didn't quite come along as I wanted it to. He wasn't as amazing under the hood when it comes to the individual pitches as I wanted him to be either. However, what happens in these rankings is when you get to this, we're really starting getting to like, wait a second, these are not safe. This is not like destined quality. And I think I can at least say with Chris Sale, if I have him on my team and he's pitching, I'm going to love it. I'm going to like it. And that is a huge, huge thing that you have to secure in 12-teamers. If you are rostering guys that you don't know if you're going to like or not, that's a problem. That is actually how you lose leagues a lot. If you stay with Chris Bassett the entire year, you had a 142 whip or whatever it was, right? Like that is terrible. You just lost your league because of you stay with that one guy for too long. Obviously not as high as these necessarily, and I feel like you're not going to ever drop them, but there's more question, I think, about what you're going to get than you are with Chris Sale. I want you to talk more about him because you have him higher than I do, and there's obviously other elements for you there.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, I looked at it like I think I had him 8 or 9, and then I factored in that he didn't end the season healthy, and so I, docked him a little bit. I think also right now the nature of the injury is so it's like very nebulous to me. Like I don't actually know how hurt he was. I don't know what the recovery is. I don't really have any sense of where he's at in terms of the how his health. I would like to believe, given what they said about his injury, that we're going to be ready for opening day next year.
What's going on?
Not really, because I have months till the start of the season, right? If there was a serious enough injury, he would have already had surgery. Like they've been out of the playoffs for a while. If it was an injury that would require surgery, he would have had surgery. And we're also looking at I don't really conflate that with some of the previous injuries because a lot of the other injuries were total fluke injuries that weren't arm related, right? Getting hit with the comebacker. There was like the oblique, right? The finger, things like that where it's like, that isn't, hey, this guy has perpetual arm issues, so I'm not going to try to lump those things on top of it. And then I go back to Nick's. I have him at 15 because after 15 for me gets into, I'm not sure that pitcher has true like top 5 ace quality
This is the one.
skills and Sale does. And so I don't want to buy back in after a breakout year, but to me, Sale at 15 isn't buying back in on a breakout year because what we've seen from him over his entire career is that he is a top 15 or better starting pitcher in baseball when he's healthy and pitching.
Yeah.
And so I'm banking on at least some health again next year.
So Aaron Nola is the one I'm still debating on, really. I don't know. I just don't know if I'm going to see, like, he had a 120 whip this year, and his hittability was much higher than I wanted it to be. So I'm tempted to put him kind of like closer to Castillo.
You have Ohtani on the Angels still. That's offensive.
Oh, I didn't put that in. Okay.
But
I did not. I did not put that in. Oh, man.
But I know you mentioned Ohtani too.
Yeah.
For me, it's just I look at he was healthy enough that there was talk that he might even pitch in the postseason games. He obviously didn't, but we're expecting him to pitch, be ready in the rotation for opening day. We already are baking in. He's on the Dodgers. He's not going to throw 190 innings, right? That's not part of what we're expecting from him. But the quality of the innings you're going to get from him probably makes him a top 10 starting pitcher when he's on the mound. Also, Nick and I both share the belief that like starting pitching is inherently risky. Everybody has risk. The starters that may have less risk are the guys who are freshly off major arm surgery and have repaired whatever they have repaired. They have new elbows that, we talked about like the Tommy John honeymoon. We know those stats from the past that like I probably feel as confident about Ohtani having a healthy season as I do Scooble, as I do Nola, as I do Logan Gilbert, as I do George Kirby because he had an issue. It was fixed. And so I'm not expecting 190, but I think 150, 160 innings of Ohtani gets you a top 10 starting pitcher.
So just about that, by the way, I was talking to Jeff Zimmerman, and he said, "Why he's not on the Angels?" No, he said that the health grade for Otani. He actually had a mining the news he thought he saw. That was you're gonna fix it. That's amazing. That Otani might not start actually pitching until May or June. And that's a thought just because then they want to make sure he's all ramped up for 150 innings and ends with the end of the World Series, which makes so much sense. So I actually put in my blurb of Otani, side note, this might be the thing. If that's the case, I probably would have him down to like 30 or something like that. Right, he went on the IL. That's actually a great point. Well, maybe he would because I think of Otani as two Otanis, pitcher and hitter. I actually would hope that they put pitcher on IL, but I guess they wouldn't. Oh my gosh, that's brutal. That is bad. Okay, that's going to be really tough. I don't know what to do with that ranking. I just want it to be the season where I can say you're hurt, so I don't rank you. I don't know what. I got to figure that one out. Absolutely good thing there. DeGrom. Oh, this is a fun one. Oh my gosh. Okay, couple things. One, who remembers pre-draft 2023 the conversations that were going around about DeGrom and when he went in ADP? Right? What was it? He was the first or third pitcher off the board. Why? Because all the projections pretty much said DeGrom is like 50% better than the next guy. And he's saying, okay, guys, look, Nick, he's coming back from Tommy John, second one, and he's getting older. He can't be good, all of that. He just came back and had like the best PLV rates again. Like he had those 3 games. He showed that, yes, I'm here and I'm healthy. And that, to me, that whole argument still stands, and I think even more so now because he just got the repaired elbow. We wanted him to get the surgery before when we were having those conversations about 100 innings, not 100 innings. He's got the repaired elbow now. So I have to assume whatever assumption that you had back then, we got to say it's going to be a little bit more than that with DeGrom. And when that guy pitches, he is still the best pitcher on the planet.
We've seen a season where he throws 90 innings and is a top 5 starting pitcher in fantasy baseball. Like we don't have to think about it. We've seen him do it. And then the age component is also like, yes, it's a factor, but also Verlander won a Cy Young when he was older than DeGrom will be next year. So it's possible, again, another pitcher we've seen do it. And I saw DeGrom healthy at the end of the year. So I'm expecting him to be healthy at the start of next year. There's no reason to baby him, right? We don't know how many years he has left. Yeah. So if I'm even getting 90 innings of DeGrom, I think this is a fair rating.
The idea that this is as binary as it was before is false in my view. I think before I was really the one pushing back on DeGrom back then because I felt like we were having the 100 inning conversation, but then it was really like a 30 inning conversation, right? And I now think, well, no, this guy is healthy and showed it already, at least now. So we don't have as rough of a binary thing. Yes, obviously there is that chance that it just ends and it's done, but I think that's a much lower chance now. And I cannot emphasize enough the class of starter that DeGrom can be, that Garrett Crochet, Skeens, Skubal, those guys are, really does make a massive, massive impact in fantasy, especially when you start looking at like Bailey Ober, who just almost had a 4 ERA season, and Aaron Nola with the 120 whip, and Pablo Lopez, who just had his back and forth, and so on and so forth. There is such a big gap there. And I can't look at this and just say, well, yeah, just take Jacob DeGrom. Again, you're going to feel this way like in April, like you wish you drafted Jacob DeGrom. It's just how it works. So hopefully I got to all those guys with you there. Good stuff. Thank you, Ariel, for that.
Chris Towers.
Chris Towers is coming up now. Oh, my gosh. Chris Towers, everybody.
Hi, Chris Towers. First time, long time. So, unfortunately, the question I wanted to ask is kind of redundant now because I was going to ask, what's the nickname for 6 through 8?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Because you've got it like the double TJ brothers
it's
or
called the Ripped Aces.
Okay.
That's what it is. Like it's essentially these are aces, but like they have they're torn a little bit.
Yeah, because you're
that's what I did exactly. So I'm happy you brought that up because
you've got Shane McClanahan. To be clear,
right? That's a tier.
Listening,
That is
Shane
actually
McClanahan.
a tier on my list. It's the 1 through 5. I'm wondering if I'm going to put Burns underneath where Michael King is essentially, but it's 1 through 5, and then you have DeGrom, McClanahan, and Otani, all who essentially are like Skubal, Skeens, and Crochet. Mm-hmm. It's just an innings question. It's just like the health and everything like that I feel like we just need to know more about. But McClanahan, you didn't bring up Ariel. I'm actually surprised. That's the same situation in many ways of like a guy come back, it's a second TJ. What is this? The Rays have been very abundantly clear. Like, yeah, he's healthy. We expect him, all this stuff. Is he going to go 180? No. He's going to go like 150 or so. But, I mean, that 150 is a new 200. Like, you get 150 out of a guy, you're going to be super happy with that from McClanahan this year. And he was as good as it gets. Last time he pitched, he's an elite lefty with elite changeup, and that's really what this league is. If you are a lefty with an elite changeup and also a really good fastball and breakers, but if you start with that elite changeup, that's what you want. He's unbelievably good, and I'm so in on that too.
But like those would be, if this came to fruition.
Yeah.
These would be like the 3 best seasons ever by guys coming back from a second Tommy John surgery. Right?
Well, we don't
Like,
have much
that's-
data on it, and also I don't think that we've seen guys of this caliber have 2 Tommy Johns. So I don't know actually how to really do that. But yeah, you're not wrong. Absolutely.
Like I look at Walker Buehler this year.
Yeah,
and
Walker,
I was in on
Here's
him.
the thing on Walker, though. I do want to mention he was a sticky stuff guy, and his 4-seamer was
Absolutely.
like such a great pitch and the foundation of everything. Actually, the thing that we talked about with him was his 4-seamer is great, and the other peripherals weren't that good. They were like strike pitches. They were like, get me to the place that I can go upstairs with it. And we're talking like, if you are familiar with IVB, like 18 to 19 inches, sometimes even 20 of vert on that 4-seamer when he had sticky stuff. And when he came back, it was like 15 to 16. Like, he lost the thing that was good. And this was even before Tommy John, right before he was struggling. It's probably because he was hurt, but also because his fastball wasn't good anymore and his other stuff wasn't elite, right? So I remember actually having this conversation about like Walker Buehler, like, how is he actually like amazing? And that makes more sense to me with Walker Buehler.
I think it also comes down to like Nick's way of ranking, which he has like I have taken on because I think it makes sense, is the idea of bucketing players, right? Putting similar players in buckets like tiers or whatever. And so the conversations we've had, which is why we have those 3 ranked similarly, is like where's your cutoff of, hey, this guy is absolutely elite. If he is my starting pitcher, there's a clear ace. There's no doubt in my mind that this guy is an ace. And then when you start to get okay, that guy maybe, but is like, for me, I then put those 3 guys before the sure but guys.
Yeah.
Like the Garrett Coles, the Logan Gilberts, the George Kirbys, there's a case for fantasy ace, but there's also an injury thing, a command thing, a lack of strikeouts, inconsistent secondaries, whatever it is. And so for me, it made sense to slot those 3 injury guys ahead of them because you're looking at, on pure talent, I think they're better. So if I get that Chris Sale 2024 season out of them, like their upside is so much higher that I wanted to put them before my semi-question mark guys.
The floor isn't performance, right? It's
Right, the
time.
floor,
Sure.
right?
But that's like a different thing, right? It's
And everybody's got that floor.
right, sure, but but they have a higher one of of actual like I start them, it's good, right? And the other one's like I don't know if I want to.
Yeah, every pitcher's floor is he makes 1 start.
Right, exactly, yeah. And also, if you guys notice, there's no Spencer Strider here.
Yeah.
And no Spencer Strider, no Sandy Alcantara.
He's almost there. He's like that. But yeah, it's
We'll get to
Strider.
Sandy.
I don't know when he comes back. There's an assumption that he's going to be back like right away, and it's like I don't.
It was an
think so.
internal brace, so it might not be as long. We don't really know.
I just always take 14. I say 14 months. I just say 14 months. That's the bare minimum. I always like to say that. I generally like to add another month. I remember the talks of like Robbie Ray being sooner or something like that. It's like, no, Rasmussen was supposed to be faster with internal brace. He wasn't, stuff
I
like
also
that.
just want to point out Corbin Burns got his cutter back.
Yes,
He did.
did.
I heard that somewhere.
And so I
heard that.
I think people might be sleeping on that and just
Yes.
looking at the overall
Oh,
profile, but
man.
he was way
Thank
better
you
in
so
September.
much.
Did hear
Chris
that.
Towers, you're totally right. Oh, Chris Towers, everyone. Thank you so much.
Chris.
All right.
We
got
got
someone
a
over
final question for our top 25, and then we'll move to the next page.
And by the way, everybody, if you don't know, if you're coming in late, what we're doing on this podcast is really just, this is your time to make peace. Just to say anything you want about all of this. This is an open mic for you. Line up behind Miles Nelson in the corner there if you'd
Miles
like to.
dressed head to toe
jump
like
to
he's
the
from
mic.
Southern California.
This is
over
for
there.
you. This is your podcast, not ours. Say what you want. I know you were jumping up before, and I don't know what's going on now. Oh, that was it. Okay, he's got you. Well, then what are you doing? Sitting down. I don't know what you're doing. You can. This is for you. This is for you. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's smart.
Okay.
That's smart
Alex?
thinking.
Introduce
are
yourself
you?
to the audio listeners.
I'm Alex.
Alex Fast, is that you?
I'm Alex Chamberlain.
Oh my God.
So I just want to point out that this is actually not Eric's top 25.
It's
Correct.
both. It's yeah. It's Eric.
That's
you had
not
like a
fair to
38.
Eric.
Yeah, well, he made this.
So the second question, the second question is sell me on and talk me down from Spencer Schwellenbach.
Oh, okay. You go first.
There's no really talking down. Like, I like Spencer Schwellenbach. I thought 38 was a pretty good ranking for Spencer Schwellenbach. I liked a young pitcher who I thought was, thrust into a situation at 21, I believe, years old, pretty quickly. And I think you started to see him get a little more comfortable with the pitch mix and the command of how he can attack major league hitters. And I think that once you I don't know the exact cutoff in my head, but once he got like 5, 6, 7 starts under his belt, you started to see the arsenal widen, and we started to go to 5 true pitches. We started to mix and match them a little bit more based on the handedness of the hitter. You started to see a pitcher who was getting a little bit more confidence in what he was able to do to major league hitters. And I remember talking on the podcast about, okay, maybe this is a guy who his strikeout upside isn't elite, but he has a wide array of pitches he can attack hitters with in various counts, and that gives him a really safe floor and also allows him to kind of attack different opponents in different ways based on either the handedness or what their weaknesses are. And then you started to see him actually gain more strikeout upside as the season went on. So he established his floor, and then he started to flash a little bit more of the upside.
That rhymed. That was nice.
And for me, I've also taken like what Eno has said in the past too about you have this kind of like this. It's like a stuff plus bump, but a buffer. Once you get 5 solid pitches that a pitcher uses, that establishes a safe and consistent floor that isn't always just like, hey, the stuff metrics aren't good, or hey, the PLV metrics aren't great.
Unless you're Chris Bassett.
Right. Well, I've never been a Bassett. I've never been a Bassett person.
Bassett Hound, really?
No,
Yeah,
I'm
Bassett
not a
Hound.
Bassett.
Yeah,
Not
come
a
on.
Bassett.
Get
Hound.
with it.
Yeah, no.
Let's go.
So I thought 38 was a strong ranking for a guy with a relatively small MLB sample size who I still don't know how much is safe floor and how much is the potential high ceiling, but I think maybe I'll never get him drafting him here, but I felt like that was kind of my range, and the bucket with him made sense.
Good stuff. So pretty much he made my case for me. This is pretty great. And he has him 38. I don't know why, because that was such a lovely endorsement. No, here's how. Okay, sure. I'll present both sides. So the thing about Schwellenbach to me is that there's a certain mold of pitcher that I cannot get enough of when it comes to fantasy drafts. And every single year I go back and go, man, why didn't I go harder on this kind of guy? And it's the one that has the volume floor of, hey, look, as long as he's healthy, we know he's going to go every 5 days for a good ball club, and he's going to be able to go at least 6 innings, if not more. The team's going to give him the ball. It's just a good situation, and it has a floor that, like, if he does kind of just what you expect, then everything is great, and also has room to grow to be a definitive top 15 guy as well. That is Spencer Schwellenbach to me. That has been George Kirby in the past, Logan Gilbert, Sandy Alcantara, Zach Wheeler, etc. I've talked about this a lot, but I cannot get enough of those kind of guys who are not Toby's because they have swing strike rate pitches up the wazoo. They also have good foundations with everything that they do. It's just kind of a great situation to be in. And Schwellenbach fits this. He has a cutter that he uses into lefties. I love to see that. It creates weak contact and a ton of strikes. You have 2 whiff pitches actually 3 in his curveball, his slider, and his splitter. And he throws 96 for a winning ball club with a good defense behind him and what should be a better offense than it was this past year. You also have a fastball that should be better, and it isn't. And that is the worst part about Spencer Schwellenbach. It is a four-seamer with bad shape. But the good thing about it is that he stopped throwing it as much. He understood this. In the beginning when he had problems, he had a high ICR that is a lot of contact he doesn't want. That's good for hitters, bad stuff for him. And he decided, you know what, I am going to lean in on those secondaries more And that's when we started to see the ridiculous K per walk numbers. We saw games like 7 strikeouts and 0 walks. We saw like a double-digit game, maybe 1 or 0 walks too. That's how he did it. He stopped relying on this four-seamer that was generally easier to hit than you'd expect inside the zone and relied on those secondaries. And he just throws strikes with them, and they're effective. It's so fantastic of a situation. And what's crazy is that you get a lot of these guys underneath that we don't really see right now all have massive reasons why you don't want them. And when it comes to Schwellenbach, I think the biggest one is something that Jason Collette is mentioning is that, look, 167 innings this past year through everything. Really young guy. Spencer Strider kind of had the same trajectory, and we'll look at him. I think that's very valid. I usually say that the baseline for anyone when it comes to volume that should be fine the next year is 140 innings. You throw a guy into the majors, essentially 140 innings is what you expect if someone comes back from Tommy John. Right? It's not like 110 or so. I've seen people say like, well, we threw 80 innings, so thus we can only expect like 120 because that's 50% increase. No, if you're in the majors, it's like 140. You're expected to do that if you're a starting pitcher. And I mean, that's what the White Sox, for example, did for Garrett Crochet. They're like, okay, let's put you at 140 for the year. 167 is more than that, and I don't think I was giving enough credit for that. That is a much larger workload for a very young arm. There might be some effect to that. However, I do feel Atlanta is just going to say, go. You just threw 167, go. If he gets hurt, he'll get hurt. I cannot tell you that he's going to get so much more hurt than everyone else here. When it comes to injury, I think like it's just so hard to really predict that.
167 for a guy who was a position player in college too.
Right.
So we don't have huge workloads in college as well. So we haven't really seen huge workloads.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my ranking for him, like I had him near like Jared Jones, Ryan Pepio, guys like that I felt in my head made sense. But now that we're also talking about it, I'm realizing those guys don't necessarily have the depth of the arsenal that Schwellenbach has.
Nor
so
the
if I'm
command.
talking about 5 pitches with command, it might make sense for him to be above them.
Yeah, that's kind of where my head is. I could see myself putting him down to like 25, 26, 27. I'm going to hold that. Hold on. I feel like we got something he wants to say about the top 25. I know exactly what it is.
I actually don't even want to talk about. I just wanted to say
Not
it's like
Reagan's and
a balance, a balance of things, and you guys got to it somewhat there. Like if you compare what Eric and Kimball and in years past Jason talked about things, mostly they all hate just about every player to talk about, right? Yeah. And like we up here, we're like we love. It's like you should use columns E and F. This is what I love. This is what I hate. And then look at that and decide what you're more comfortable with. Because yeah, it's great to have some of those other dudes, but look at those two scenarios. If it all goes right, if it all goes wrong,
Exactly.
and then look at it and take that kind of context. Because you guys just did a great job of talking through Schwellenbach. It's like today is the first time when you just mentioned position player. It's like, yeah, there's another strike against him with that kind of thing. And
Yeah, I don't know, right?
That we don't know, right? Because there's less wear and tear.
and
on
if
the
you
arms,
have,
but,
and if you have all those pitches, it's
DeGrom
like
was?
we see some guys. Oh, he throws 6 pitches, but what does he throw? Go look at his Plinko chart. What does he throw when it's 3-1?
Well, actually,
That tells you how many pitches he really has.
I'm with you there, and actually, I've been surprised to see that, especially early on.
Yeah.
What you normally see from rookies is it's like, okay, cool, I've got that changeup against lefties. That's the funniest thing. It's like the Chris Archer changeup I talk about. It's, no, I got that 10% changeup against lefties.
Don't
It's
remind
great.
me about the Chris Archer changeup. God.
But you know I'm right. So like, okay, Tyler Glasnow changeup, is that cool with you too? Is that fine? Okay.
Nightmares.
Right? But that's the thing is that when you come up as a rookie, you expect them to go just back to the fastball or something. That isn't Schwellenbach.
Right.
He's
Well,
going
I
cutter
meant that
into
for
a
any pitcher. I
think
just wasn't
no,
talking
I'm
about
with
him
you.
in that
Yeah.
case.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
I think it's not talked about enough. I agree. I think against it was Freddie Freeman or something. He threw like a 3-0 cutter or something inside to him, or like 3-2 pitch. So you think, okay, he's grooving it fastball, 3-2 cutter in and got him out with it. I'm like, oh, this is so fun. This is so great. So that gets me in, and especially when. And the other element of this that I try to emphasize a lot is as you watch these games of these pitchers, all of you in this room, yes, all of you in this room will subconsciously know, do I have confidence that this guy is going to put this pitch where he wants to? You can just watch it and you feel this guy. You know that like, oh, you're like waiting. You get upset because it's like 0-2 and then he doesn't execute 2 pitches. And the 2-2 pitch is like a slider supposed to be down away, but then it comes over the plate. And like, you know this subconsciously. It's like frustrating. But then you watch like Zach Wheeler pitch and then it's just like, oh yeah, that goes there. Yep, that's effective. That's good. That's that. You probably need to hit escape and then get out of the full screen mode is my guess. I'm just going to give this to Adam Howe, and he's going to edit it, and it's going to be wonderful. But that's really the thing I get at is you can understand who has actually that good, consistent command. Anyone that watched Jared Jones this year will actually see this at the beginning of the year. He put that fastball everywhere he wanted, slider underneath. You watch him in the last 2 months of the year, he did not know where anything was going. And that's actually why I don't have Jared Jones as high, because I don't have the confidence that every single day he goes out there, he's going to be pitching and executing exactly the way he wants to. I hear in the back. You hit. Okay. So if you go to Clippy over here, he's going to say, are you trying to host a podcast? Yeah, you can do that. It's at the bottom. It's probably too big of a window, and it's underneath the bottom of the screen. Just drag it up or close the windows more. Make the window smaller. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, okay. If you're coming in late, please, we want to. Oh, absolutely. Of course you can.
So
We got another question. Hold on a second. We have another question here, everybody.
So-
What is your name?
Mitchell.
Mitchell. Hi, Mitchell.
Yes.
How you doing?
Yes, just a fan podcast.
Oh, well,
listen
thank you so
podcast.
much for coming.
So you're showing absolutely no love at all to Shota Imanaga.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so that's first. So
Neither of us are, so
you-
hey,
you-
it's
you
collective.
What?
Collective, 23 and 20.
Yeah. So I think that needs some explanation.
Sure.
In the sense that you could almost, I would even suggest bumping them up.
Yeah.
Switching with Crochet potentially.
Whoa. Okay, wait.
Now,
Explain
not-
that one.
not necessarily-
Explain that one, though. I want to hear why. Yeah.
Well, I think that, in terms of performance last year,
Yeah.
Imanaga was equal and better than
Mm-hmm.
Crochet. Obviously, the stuff is better.
Hey. But keep going, please.
Crochet's stuff is better, arguably. I'm not going to.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
But in terms of the team context
Uh-huh.
and also the
We got a question here. We got a question, everybody, please.
the team context of Imanaga, the Cubs,
Yeah.
is obviously clearly much better than the White Sox. Imanaga's performance last year was phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the fact that you have him 24, 25
Totally get it, yeah.
is somewhat unjustifiable, arguably. I would also argue that DeGrom, I don't know how closely you watched his starts
Yeah.
at the end of the season. I know it's a small sample, but I'm curious to get your thoughts about his confidence in throwing his secondary and peripheral pitches other than just throwing lasers or,
Yeah.
straight down the plate.
Sure.
Because he was hit pretty hard. I don't know. I don't have
No.
the numbers in front
No,
of me.
sure, yeah.
But the eye test was that he was getting hit. And then
Mm-hmm.
the other point I would make about DeGrom is that his innings cap is very. It's going to be very clear that he's going to have an innings cap.
Well, I mean, innings cap based on health or by the team?
Both. I think by the team certainly. Because I think that once he starts gaining confidence in his peripheral secondary pitches, then he's going to exert more effort and more potentially torque or whatever it is on his arm, which.
So
I
just
think the
I just want to make
Rangers-
sure I understand that. So
Yeah.
the what you're saying is that as the season goes on, he's going to gain more confidence and then kind of have more adrenaline. Then that's going to be more harmful to his arm. He's going to get hurt because of that.
Potentially.
Okay.
Yeah, I see, and the Rangers are going to look at that. They're going to say, okay, we need to maybe cap his inning. That's
Sure.
my argument.
I
for
got you.
capping his
Okay.
inning. So I would say the DeGrom and Imanaga are two things.
The two ones that, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I'll leave it at that.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thanks.
So just yeah. Thank you, Mitchell. So I just a couple notes on that before we get to the 26 through 50. which we don't have number. Oh yeah, we do. Great, awesome. About the DeGrom points, I did watch those games, and I mean, he did what he's always done, which is fastballs away, glove side, and sliders glove side too. He just does this like line with it, and then I guess with lefties as well, he does go away glove side as well. I don't really think he got hit that hard personally. I think that it was the DeGrom that we expected. Our PLV model as well still has him as like the best pitcher on the planet for those. He had his slider back doing the things. Normally you worry about the secondaries when it comes to coming off of Tommy John. And that was a guy who was just like, yeah, I got this. I'm just going to put it exactly where I've always put it before. It looked like the DeGrom, at least in my view. And when it comes to next year, I mean, he's already throwing 99. I'm not too worried that there's going to be another adrenaline jump. He's just going to be DeGrom. He's just going to pitch, and he won't care, kind of, because that's just what he does. If the Rangers want to have a cap on him, which is pretty typical after Tommy John anyway, 140, 150, that's totally fine, because I believe that the skills that he has does separate him so much in those 140, 150 than those that would have a higher innings cap that we are waiting in on this. About Imanaga, I do want to mention, I believe it was a 2.91 ERA that he had for the year. I think it was like a 0.8 for the first like 6 weeks. Was that right? 0.8? Right. So that was absurdly good, and I remember that. But then also after that, then it's not 2.91. It wasn't. As the season went on for Imanaga, he had to adapt to use the sweeper a little bit more. And I was actually excited about because he was just like four-seamer splitter only before. I was like, yeah, but when you stink, what happens? It's nice to see a two-pitch pitcher showcase that he has the ability to do something else. Because then when things go badly, you have a backup option. Then you're not going to do the Bailey Ober thing of 9 earned runs and stuff like that, right? Which was also stupid low sample, and I'm not putting any weight that he's just now going to have like 8-run games every year. I think that's not going to happen. So with Imanaga, I do think that his fastball velocity went down. His vert, his IVB that was so effective for that 0.9 ERA run got worse. And that's also why he didn't replicate that run later on. The splitter, Alex Chamberlain will tell me I hate splitters. I love the Imanaga splitter. I believe that one. I think it is legitimately amazing. I do a little more worry about a sweeper to lefties. I don't think it's as incredible. It's still good, but it's not as great against the lefties. And the four-seamer being at 90-91 with declining vert for a 31-year-old pitcher. And I'm not really putting too much weight into this, but I do want to mention and put it out there. There have been a lot of times we've seen Japanese pitchers showcase that injury the second year because they were overpitched or overused in a new way the first year. We just saw that with Kodai Senga, for example. So I am a little, it's like in the back of my head too about that. But valid things that you're mentioning there too.
We also think to me, 23 is still a pretty high ranking. 25% strikeout rate for Imanaga is going to be lower
30, right?
than a lot of those guys you're taking, like the top 10, 15 starting pitchers overall. And then the contact rates against him are also fairly average. Like the ICR is basically exactly average. And then we already talked about like the home run issues.
Yeah, 17
and so those are
against
things
righties.
that to me take him from being like a fantasy ace to being him a fantasy like an SP2, right? A guy that you're really happy on your team, but I don't think he has the upside of some of those guys that are ahead of him.
30% strikeout rate, 2.5 ERA, 1 whip or something.
So it's more about the upside of the people that we had ahead of him, at least for me.
Yeah, no, I'm
and
with you.
not about a downside for Imanaga, who I like and would be totally happy to have on any and all of my teams.
Great questions. Thank you.
Kyle, you were waiting.
Oh, wait,
for
someone
number
is
4.
waiting. Who is this guy? Come on up.
Thank
What do
you,
we
Kyle.
got? And remember, anybody, go stand
come
up, ask
up,
questions. This
stand
is
in
for
line,
you. This
ask.
is your podcast, not ours. Who are you?
Hey there, I'm Kyle Bland,
Oh my
Director
gosh,
of
it's Kyle
Data Analytics at PitcherList.
Oh, yeah.
Data. I love the data.
And emergency tech support for the podcast.
Absolutely. Yep.
Not anymore.
Nah, yeah, that's formerly
Revoked.
formerly tech support. My question is, how much money did Blake Snell steal from you? Because
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the only way I can understand him being out of the top 25.
Yeah, I know.
I have him at 25, so he's
Fair.
talking to Nick.
You get a
Oh,
pass.
he's talking
Yeah.
just to Nick.
I mean, all right, so hold on a second. What's really funny is that last year, you guys might remember, Saris had like 10, 15 minutes of us debating Blake Snell. I put him at 33, and he just came in going, "You're wrong. How do you do this about Blake Snell?" And he's like, "Where do you have him?" 29. And I'm like, What's the difference? There's no difference. I think also I do want to mention these guys, like, you'll be happy with all of them. When I do in the preseason, as I say, cool, let me talk about your roster. Okay, great. And I go through their pitchers. I'm like, how many of them are great? You got 1, 2, 3, 4, but not like you got that one and you got that one. It's just like, did you get 4 great pitchers? Awesome. You should generally be okay as long as they all fit together. It's not completely safe or it's complete risk or whatever, right? So Blake Snell, I'm going to ask you first here, Kyle. We have him. I have a 28, 25. Where should Blake Snell be?
I'd have him probably right around 10.
Okay, so
He had 20 starts and flirted with a 35% strikeout rate last year.
I understand completely. So Blake Snell, for 4 years now, has done this legit song and dance of like 2 months of just, what have I done with myself? Why would I? How could you do this to me, Blake? I believed in you. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, I feel so smart. I picked Blake Snell, right, for like the last three months of the year. What's crazy is that it's always different. Like, why he does is never the same. I've seen it like from all of a sudden his changeup is a thing to now sliders are bigger. Now all of a sudden his 4-seamer command, which was bad before, he just moves it over. The latest addition was, hey, you know what, that curveball that's usually like a 52% strike rate pitch, I'm just going to do like 60, 65% now and just all of a sudden find the zone with it consistently, right? And I want so badly to just say, this is who you are. You had the lovely narrative of Scott Boras messing with you, so you signed so late, it messed you up. You only had those 6 starts for ages, and then you went off. You finally showed up, and you did your thing. But at the same time, I know I just can't believe that, like, this is who he is now. We tried to say that for 4 years, and I could be totally wrong about Blake Snell. I find him like the hardest person to rank for this reason. I also know that being a fantasy manager, it is the worst feeling when it's May 10th and you have Blake Snell and he's not helping your team. It is like you don't know what to do.
Championships aren't made in May, though.
I know, but my stress levels are made throughout the year, okay? And I got to keep those as depressed as possible. And as a fantasy manager, I try to limit as much as possible tough decisions where I just don't know what I should be doing with this guy. Should I trade him? Should I not? Should I do this? Should I not? I just want to know, I think this guy is terrible or I think he's great. And the more guys that I can draft that can make this, but he's great. You're going to say he's great, right? Yeah, he's great. But the thing is, let's say the past 4 years. No. Hold on. The past 4 years, if you've had Blake Snell on your team, I don't care what you say, knowing the extra information. When he's not being good on June 28th for 3 months, I know how confident we say we know he does this every year, but man, you are going to be stressed out and you just don't know if he's actually going to do it again. You don't.
The past 3 years, if you had Blake Snell, you got a 31% strikeout rate, a 31% strikeout rate, a 34.7% strikeout rate,
too.
And 3 straight years of an ERA under 3.5.
Yeah.
He went on a 120 ERA run for like 3 months or so in 2023, and it was so obvious then, and then you had to wait until June to get it, or July. No, yeah, go ahead. No. So how much? So where do you want him?
Yeah.
Because his skills are not always consistent. They're not, though. It's a different skill set every year. That's my issue.
Different things he's good at?
Yeah. I know, no. But the thing is, the thing he was good at before, all of a sudden that one's gone. And then he has to find something else that changes it. Right? I get it, but I don't like trusting something where I don't know what it is.
You've got DeGrom.
I know what his skills are.
Not playing time.
That's a different question.
I just want to point out one other thing.
For me, I put like he's 25 for me.
This is
I
fun.
probably thought about putting him every spot from like 13
Yeah.
or 14
It's like,
or 15 on. And so
I know
and
he did this last year.
Right. I know.
How many
And so
times?
I understand the logic, and he could easily be moved up for me to something like the 15 to 20 range too.
How many times has Blake Snell had 175 strikeouts in his career?
Twice.
Twice.
Yeah, that's why he pitched 180
That is
innings and won the
that-
Cy
like
Young.
that, like,
Yeah, that's a great point.
I think you view
Towers.
Blake Snell as like, yeah, but I'm going to get strikeouts.
How many
He's
is it
thrown,
actually going
he's
to
thrown
be?
more than 130 innings, I think, twice.
Yeah.
That's
Ah. But I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is you're saying about health, about like what you should put up with the health guys. I think the health, I know it's going to be a certain skill with if I get that health. With Blake Snell, when he's healthy, he's not always at that level. He isn't. It had to take some time with him, and as Chris Towers is making the point, is that he's not getting up past 175 strikeouts often, even though in the bunches of it, he is acting like that. He is not one of those guys that's just like, he's healthy, I get amazing things. That is just not the case with Blake Snell, especially when it's not the same way that he has it. Okay, agree, disagree. COTs. No, this is their podcast. It's their podcast, not ours.
I don't know who this guy is, but he should have his own podcast.
Chris, can we skip you for
Where
a
do you
second
have
for
Snell?
some of the people that haven't
Where
asked
do you
yet,
have him?
and then we'll.
Yeah, that's fine.
You're a beautiful human, and we'll come back to you. I promise.
Right. I totally see it.
Introduce yourself and ask your question.
I can't think of anything funny to say. I'm Jake Crumpler.
Hey, Hey, Jake Crumpler.
Let's call it-
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Hi, Jake. What's up?
Thank you.
What's happening, Jake? What would you like to talk about?
I mean, philosophy, but baseball. Baseball's on the docket.
Sure.
You say Kikuchi
Yeah, he's a
was
guy.
really good when he joined the Astros. 2.5 ERA, 31% strikeout rate,
Absolutely.
26% strikeout minus walk rate. Most importantly, though, he changed his pitch usage.
What do we know about pitch mix at all?
We talked about it. Yeah,
Did we?
We did.
Yeah, we do. Okay, that's good.
So I guess my question for you is, as he enters free agency, what is keeping you from bumping him up your ranks?
Yeah.
Are you concerned that
You
pitch
got
usage
this.
is not going to stick,
This
or are you
is-
concerned with his
yes.
skills?
Yes, because
Yes.
the pitch mix change. Because the pitch mix change was something that a lot of people for like 2 or 3 years were like, "Hey, why aren't we dumping the curve and leaning into the slider more?" Like this is. It seemed fairly obvious, and for whatever reason, it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And then he got to the Astros, and it happened, and it was great. But I just think there's no guarantee that something that had seemed logical for years and hadn't happened is just gonna continue to happen whatever new organization he goes to,
But they just
because
don't
he
have
flashed it, but he's flashed it at times before too. Like there were times where he dropped the curveball in I think it was early last season, and we were like, oh, this is great, and then all of a sudden the curveball's back to being a 20% pitch, and you're like, why is this back in? We've dialed it up, we've dialed it back. So I don't know if it was an organizational thing in Toronto. I don't know if it was a him thing. I don't know if it's a feel thing where he went on a really hot stretch in the second half because maybe he really felt he was feeling the slider a lot, or maybe he didn't feel comfortable with the curve and he just stopped throwing it as much. I could see ranking him earlier or higher, but my confidence that pitch mix change is going to carry over takes a hit because it's something that he's flashed before and then never committed to, and so I don't fully buy that this is now we've passed that point where now he's just fully bought in. And maybe that burns me. I think if you believe he's going to go to a new organization and they're going to see the change and they're just going to keep that who he is, and depending on where he signs, maybe that will give me extra confidence. You might take him and be super happy. But if I'm taking him in the late 20s, early 30s among guys like, Gallen or Framber Valdez or Sonny Gray or, Jared Jones, whatever it is, and the pitch mix doesn't carry over, I'm going to be really bummed that I took Kikuchi over some of those guys.
So I do want to say this. What isn't noticed here is where I have my tiers, and I actually have been debating a ton. It's actually really funny, the whole Blake Snell thing. Blake Snell and Jared Jones, I actually was thinking of putting into the Dylan Cease element and then bringing down Schwellenbach to Wu, Alcantara, Steele, Gallen, Valdez. And that might ultimately be what I do because that's more of a bucket, I think, of kind of skills and everything like that. You want him? It was Snell? Oh, it was Schwellenbach. Oh my gosh, stop this. You had your chance. I asked and you didn't want to. Okay. But I do want to mention at Logan Webb and Webb through Steele is this what I'm calling actual Hollies, which are the ones that I am not going to drop this year. I know I'm going to get production out of, but they're not going to be SP1s. They shouldn't be. They're really I don't really expect them to have a one whip, or maybe maybe Bryce Miller, but there's going to be more questions with him about actually developing further. It's a lot of just like, oh yeah, this is going to be good, but I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, I won my league because of this. I hope it is, but that's how I see those volume guys of being productive. And then after that, it's Shane Baz all the way down to Robbie Ray is its own tier of just, I want these guys so badly to be dope, but like, I don't know what we're going to get exactly. And Yusei Kikuchi, of course, is right in that. So I could totally see Kikuchi all the way up to where Shane Baz is, right? Or something like that. With Kikuchi exactly, he's a weird case of a four-seamer that is really flat that could be so good if he's able to just do the Blake Snell blueprint properly of like go upstairs all the time. And then he kind of did a bit last year with the curve and the slider a lot. Curve was the strike pitch. A lot of people want to hate on his curveball, and I get it because it had bad results. But what it kind of overlooks was it was a necessary bad third pitch that made his slider and fastball better because it got the strikes that he didn't want to have to get with those, right? Talks about that a lot. Like if you're a two-pitch pitcher with a bad third pitch, you are better now by adding a mediocre offering. And that's what the curve was for a bit. So with Kikuchi, though, what is so funny to me is he showed up this year. He's like, well, okay, I'm a lefty. What does that mean? I got to get a good changeup. Fine. He started throwing this changeup, and it was so bad. Awful. It was like a 49% strike rate, I think, at one point, which is terrible. You want at least a 60% strike rate. And it meant that he was eating into the slider, he was eating into the curveball. He was actually locating his fastball finally well. And if you read the roundups through the year, I just kept complaining over and over again, being like, your fastball is great. You got this, but what is this whole thing with the secondaries? Like, you got to figure this out. You finally are doing the thing I want you to do. And eventually, here he goes to the Astros. And by the way, he was terrible before it. He wasn't doing the things we wanted to do. He was trying to figure out, my slider the thing? Is it not? Is it this? And then all of a sudden he goes to the Astros. And what's the first thing he does in his first game? He brings back the changeup. And I couldn't believe it. It was finally good at the bottom of the zone. And everyone's like, oh, the Astros fixed him because the changeup is good now. And what happened after that? It was gone. Bye-bye. It was done. And like, it's funny because you get the praise of the Astros saying throw the changeup. But then they also get the praise of saying throw the fastball and slider only, right? And eventually he just went two pitch, but he was locating it perfectly. And honestly, Kikuchi isn't known to me as the guy that spots everything, right? So I have a little bit of worry that Kikuchi I don't know if he has actually the consistent command through the year. I think it could easily be a situation where it's April 20th. He has two terrible starts of not locating things, and we just go, what are we going to get again? Because that's what we dealt with this year.
I think I figured it out.
What'd you got?
I think he just needs to sleep more.
There it is. Yeah, he sleeps like 16 hours a day. Thank you so much, Jake Crumpler.
More questions?
Amazing.
More questions?
All right, next question. What do we got?
Come up, introduce yourself. What is your question?
I am Mike Coulard from Razball, and I am here to ask about. First, I'm trying to figure out the color coding a little bit.
Oh, it's difference of us. So it's ranked by me over here because Eric is nice, but then any major difference is green is I'm higher on them, red is Eric is lower on them.
So mostly I'm wondering, so Freddie Peralta has a 9-position spread there, 9-rank spread, which seems pretty significant.
Yeah.
And,
we should color code that.
Wondering, what did Freddie Peralta do to you personally? Because this is a guy who clocked in on the Razball Player Rater at 28th last year. He's under 30 years old. He was better in the second half.
Yeah.
What is up with Freddie Peralta moving him down there?
I mean, you have him high, so if you want
Corey
to go
Hart
first.
sunglasses walks in the back of the room.
Do you? So pretty quickly about Freddie Peralta, what bothers me immensely, if you remember when he came up to the majors, the number one skill that we praised about Freddie Peralta, how he survived Coors in that debut, was that he had the best extension in the majors, right? He was the guy going 7 feet out and everything. It's down. It is like 6'7" now. It's like above average, but it is not elite extension anymore, which means that the fastball that's coming in at 94 or so, that isn't actually coming in 96 or surprising us like it used to. Right? So that's a ding for me already. There's a name I give for Freddie Peralta. It's called Professor Chaos because there's so many times he pitches and it's just, what is going on? It's just absolutely not. I don't know if he has his fastball can locate it or not. And when he does, Freddie Peralta's amazing. That's what it was in 2023 of the second half where he had the amazing run. He was just spotting everything upstairs perfectly. He had the slider coming in down, the curveball coming in down, even change up sometimes as well. That second half, watching him start by start, I did not know what we were going to get. I watched some of the games, and I was just like, you're just lost completely. And I really fear that Peralta with that worse extension, that's a really bad sign for me. If you lose extension as you go, there's something going on, and I'm not going to believe that Peralta gets that back, which means now you look at the previous seasons of him, and I don't know if you can return to that. I think if anything else, it might get worse from here. So I'm not necessarily out on Peralta, at least in my view. I just have him in this tier of all the guys that have those things, and I look at the one above. I have him near the top of that tier. All of those other ones, I feel like, well, I'm not going to drop those guys. I'm going to be fine with that. It's going to be helpful. While Peralta, and guys, there are so many good pitchers. This is a 47. Like, so many good ones. Don't take the risk on DeGrom like I'm saying he's highly ranked. Just don't touch any of those. Just go and feast over here. There are so many productive guys. So, I don't know. For me, Peralta is just, it's too much of a haze. And I just don't like doing that if I don't have to. Why is he at 30?
I mean, but to me, 30 bakes in everything you said. It's because I had him, I think I had him like 17 or 18 coming into this year. So 30 to me bakes in all of the regression that we saw while still saying we understand there is talent here and we understand that there is a level of upside. I guess I'm now just saying my belief that there was top 20 upside was over aggressive. And so now the upside, I'm just not putting that high anymore.
All right. Thank you so much for your question. Oh, my God. If anyone has any questions, we're taking questions over here. Please line up by Alex Chamberlain over here. If anyone like questions, please come forward.
Hello.
What's your name?
Hello. My name is Mike Armstrong.
Hello,
How you doing?
Armstrong.
Part-time listener, first-time caller. I have a question for Paul. No, I'm kidding. No, just so where your rankings stand now. Obviously, it's early. Is there, I feel like some of these guys, we kind of know who they are at this point, but can you give me maybe a name or two each that you'll be watching a little bit closer in spring training, that maybe you're looking for something that one of these guys might pop up 5 to 10 spots on your list?
Should we go for this tier specifically?
This tier, I think this, I mean, I have a game for this one, a name for this one. Do you? I mean, there you go. 100%. I mean, Gavin Williams is the one I think I'm going to, wind up talking about the most this one. But yeah, Gavin Williams, I've called him, my comp is like a right-handed Garrett Crochet even, because he is that 96, 97 velocity with absolute elite extension. And he's now working on a cutter, and he showed it this year. And if he is that guy that pounds the zone with a four-seamer and has a cutter that he throws for strikes, that is the mode of 2 fastballs over the plate for strikes that go in different directions. So hard to tell with that extension. Big fan of Gavin Williams. I'm curious to see if he's just totally fine, because he wasn't this year. Right. And I think that's a lot of the reason why we don't see a lot of people in on Gavin Williams, because it just felt off, and he's barely been in the majors, and he has the skill set. And once he's healthy, I think it's going to be a lot different. That's going to be a big one for me. Is there someone inside this top 50 for you, Eric?
I'd say of this group, it might just be Shane Baz.
Yeah.
I think you're looking at another situation, obviously first year back from injury. The first few starts, you were kind of like, the slider isn't there like it was before. What are we getting out of him? So you're going to get another full year, healthier. We talked about how well regarded he was as a prospect coming up. So I think what version of Shane Baz I see in spring in terms of how crisp the secondaries are,
curveball
might make me feel like, okay, 43 on a ranking for him is pretty low. I could see him up closer to like a Jared Jones or somebody like that, where I'm more baking in the potential upside of what I get. So from this group, I would say Baz. Paul, would you mind switching to the 51 to 75?
But yeah, Michael Armstrong, everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you for
your comment.
And then from this group also, I would just say to me it's 100% Bobby Miller, because Bobby Miller, right?
Let's go.
No, I'm glad Eno's here for this, because Eno's like just draft Bobby Miller.
Yeah, that was.
But I had a lot of Bobby Miller. I know it's not. I know a lot of people here probably agree with the idea that like, even though he came back, I don't know that he was actually fully healthy.
I was mentioning that with the knee and everything.
And I just think we saw the upside of what he was like in 2023. I'm going to be watching him in the spring, not because I want to see if he is doing anything different. I want to see if he looks like he's a healthy pitcher, because I think obviously right now if you're putting Bobby Miller at 57, 58, and he looks like the Bobby Miller of 2023,
he's not going to stay there.
He's not going to be within 40 picks of that or 30 picks of that.
Right. So I just don't know where to put him. I put him in the other one or not. Who are you? I'm sorry. Yeah. Who are you? Well, you just
with Bobby Miller, like, does he? I think you could actually be like, does he look comfortable out there?
Yeah, right.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So hey, so we have a new question here.
Can you hear me?
Please introduce yourself.
You can't hear me.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So introduce yourself. What question do you have?
And ask your question.
Hi, my name is Eno.
Oh my gosh.
And,
which one?
Brian?
Brian.
No, don't do that to him.
Of course.
What's the question, Eno?
So did Fromber run over your cat?
Oh my gosh.
42, like
30.
No. 32.
Oh, okay, all right.
He's in a group really of like Justin Steele and Zach
what
Allen
is your
and
like
everything.
innings pitched preview and which part of it is just terrible? You think it's like you say like too many innings of okay. Is that your deal or?
Okay.
Like, I played 12 team leagues. Come on, Fromber, dude.
Okay, so I remember midway through the year, it was about, I think I want to say it was August, was the beginning of August where Framber actually started to do something. Because before then, it was a 4+ ERA with like a 128, 130 whip or something like that. And why was it? Because the curveball was gone. The curveball was just bad. And what happened is that Framber Valdez pretty much had a Blake Snell. Oh my God, this is amazing right now. What's going on? Paul Spore is using the Pitcher List player page. It's such a good looking website. My God, the Pitcher List website. It's got all the StatCast licensed data that you could ever want. Okay. You could even do like, oh my God, you could do this. You go to the game log. Go to the game log. All right. No, but seriously though, the curveball really saved him completely. All of a sudden was better than it was even in previous years, out of nowhere. And I guess the question I have at the end of the day is, Framber Valdez has always been a guy that, I remember last year in San Francisco, we met up and we were like, what happened to the cutter of Framber Valdez?
I love the cutter.
Right, I do too, and he stopped
come
throwing it.
back.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Also,
it's possible.
I mean,
but my point of the matter is that Framber Valdez's sinker against right-handers is not very good. It is a very hittable pitch. It is constantly done. This is why the hit per nines are always really high. And he's also a guy that walks batters. He pitches around them and stuff. But when you combine that with a higher hit per nine, which means the whip is going to go up, it's going to be something that you're not necessarily winning your league with.
He's been doing this for a while now.
Well, he's been doing it differently.
Yeah, sometimes it looks bad and sometimes it looks better.
Sure,
but
but
at the end of the day, you're like, wow, you gave me a 3.75 and
that's why he's at 30.
12 wins.
That's at 30. That's why he's at 30. I don't three
should be 2 points higher at least.
Look, I think you just made my point for me. So thank you so much, Eno Saris.
Thank you.
There we go. All right. I don't know what that was a great player page. You should go to check out Framber Valdez.
So 51 to 75. We'll go through these last two pretty quickly. But Alex, you
got a question?
Or you have a
here?
question?
75 is Taj Bradley. Oh, is that the guy you want to talk? Whoever it was at 75, you wanted to talk about.
Where's Chris Sanchez?
Oh, okay. So I got to explain this. All right?
You do have to explain it.
Okay. Shh. What's going on right now? An earthquake just happened, and all of a sudden everybody is talking about it, which I get. It's very disconcerting.
Okay.
No. All right. So how I do my rankings, especially for 12-teamers.
We should just say
yes.
So the question is about Christopher Sanchez, who Nick has ranked
54?
79th, and I have him ranked 64th.
Oh, that's a 6 or 5?
That's a 6.
Okay, that makes more sense. Okay.
Kyle, it feels pretty good.
Can you tell me what Christopher Sanchez's whip was this year? 119,
like
I believe.
1.46 or something.
I think it was 119, if I got it right. Oh, 124. Oh God, I got that wrong. 20% K rate, 124, 332. No, but that's a different. Do you think that Christopher Sanchez was very different throughout the year, or was he just kind of who he is? He was just who he is. That's not that's not the Kikuchi that you're expecting next year. If you're getting a 20% K rate with a 124 whip, this is not the kind of guy I want to take a chance on and make sure that I get in my drafts. That, believe it or not, you can find something relatively close to this on your waiver wire. Okay? I have inside my article about the guys past pick 276, how many guys do that? Okay, it's all there. So I don't want to necessarily waste a draft pick on this if I have a lot of other guys that I think I can make a quick decision on to drop if they're not going well, or could actually be someone that is that SP3 for you instead of settling for Christopher Sanchez. He was actually one of the guys I really struggled with. Do I start him with this next tier, or do I leap him up to put him at the bottom of the other tier? I have him at the top of the tier right after all the flyers that I want to go after.
He's wasting so much time. This is just 15 versus 12.
Oh, there you go. So why are you talking about 15 teamers there, buddy?
I think that's all it is because
he's
super valuable in 15s, and I think
in 12 the gap isn't
where
there.
You're coming from. Because I mean, okay, maybe it's because I really do like him a lot too.
Yeah,
and I would advocate for Christopher Sanchez, but
I would also advocate for Christopher Sanchez.
I do understand your concerns about the strikeouts. I think that is a valid concern. Like, how high can you get him? I was a big Sanchez backer. I love him, so I want to advocate for him, but I don't necessarily think the ranking is
I'll even put it this way. I'll put it like this. I don't know how much better I can get into. So you believe in the slider. I understand that. But also, when it comes to the changeup and the sinker, the way that he uses this, the sinker is way too hittable.
Embrace, by the way, I like this.
And the changeup is excellent, of course. But what I'm trying to limit as much as possible entering this year, I think when we were drafting guys last season, I felt compelled in my rankings to have guys like Jordan Montgomery and Eduardo Rodriguez and Aaron Savali, and yes, Seth Lugo and Michael Walker might have been right on those.
He's in that class without the strikeouts, but if he gets the strikeouts that we think, he jumps.
Sure.
So I agree. I understand that.
What I'm trying to get at though is those guys that you feel like, they're supposed to be good on a winning thing, and like you know that they aren't that kind of explosive one that you're gonna love. I'm trying to limit going for that and ranking guy just because I feel like I have to at that point, because he's not at like Framber Valdez level. I like Framber Valdez a lot more than Christopher Sanchez. He's not at the Justin Steele level or the Zach Gallen level.
I got him at the Justin Steele.
Oh yeah, I have Justin Steele with more strikeouts next year, and I think actually a better whip as well than Sanchez.
Back a bit though.
Okay, is that with the slider?
I think the changeup too.
Well, the changeup actually was great as it was. I don't really think that there's much more of a ceiling to hit with the changeup personally, but that could happen. You could also just take off and be like a 26%, 27% swing strike rate with it. But my whole mentality is to not settle really for this. In my head, I don't feel like there's so much more to go for, and I'm going to just say, you know what? If I miss out on Christopher Sanchez as a great year, that's awesome. But I think that there are going to be a lot of guys that you can find in the wire that are relatively similar. Seth Lugo and Walker were both pick-upable in your leagues last year, for example. And I don't want to settle for this. I'd rather take a chance, believe it or not, on like a DL haul that I drop and go and get Houck Flaherty. Exactly is the perfect example I always give for those things. So I just don't want to hold on to Sanchez and never drop him. You know?
Next year's version of Flaherty and Houck, yes.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Fair enough.
Good question. Yeah. All right, next question. Oh my God! Look at this.
We've got the rest of the 51 to 75.
So you have like the
76 to 100.
For me, I've got like from Sanchez to Tobias Myers, one of the hardest guys for me to rank, and you have this kind of crew of what I'm calling the new Toby, of like the ones that it's not necessarily your boring guys without strikeouts. It's the ones that you're going to be staring at the entire time in your leagues that are actually right at the border of dropping. Like you're going to be having, like you had Cutter Crawford this year and you thought to yourself, should I actually be dropping this guy or not? And that's the thing actually I really want to emphasize with Toby. It's you don't like that he's there. It's not that he is super just, oh God, I don't get anything out of it. It could be volatile, but you don't like that he's on your team because you don't trust him. And I feel like all of those encapsulate that. I don't trust in Sean Benaya's lower arm angle to all of a sudden just be the thing. It is so hard to be that precise with your sinker in that spot at that lower arm angle. I think that is a feel thing, that is a rhythm thing that is going to be so hard for him to replicate after the long winter and then for 6 months. That's just going to be such a hard sell for me.
I will ask you a question because we haven't talked about this guy from here. We talked a lot about injured pitchers coming back, guys who have been elite when they're healthy. Their only ding is they're going to get hurt, but if they get hurt, they're on the IR or they're off your team.
Yeah.
So I'm curious why Brandon Woodruff is down at 91 for you.
So I didn't know what to do. So I have I don't have the tiers here. So I have Yuri Perez, Shane Bieber, Brandon Woodruff, Kyle Bradish, and Christian Javier all in their own tier of like stud IL is what I have it as. So I say this every year when I do my initial rankings of just like, these are the injured ones that we're going to have different opinions on come like March. You're going to get more clarity on when they come back, what the injury, how it's affecting them and everything like that. My understanding with all of them, maybe not Woodruff, But the rest of them is that they're not starting this, and not going to be back in April or so. It's going to be in the season. And Woodruff with the shoulder also is just not as clear as it is with TJ coming back. And we're like, oh, no, he's good for the season. They're saying he is. I just think there's more risk with it. But I was tempted to put Woodruff up. Where we skipped the previous one was like the Strider, Glasnow, Giolito tier, which was in here. And we actually just went past this one really quickly. Let's actually stick around here for a second because we just went straight to Christopher Sanchez. But I have that there. I don't know where I'm going to land with Strider because it's the internal brace, and everyone wants to assume it's back in April, but I don't believe that. I'm thinking June or so, like other guys that, I don't know, 14 months. That's what it would be for him coming back in June. But maybe it's different. I don't know. That's the hardest thing, I think, for us to rank right now. That right. So this is the upside flyer thing. I'll know. I'll be able to make a decision as opposed to the Christopher Sanchez, Tobias Myers was just like you're just going to get what you get kind of thing.
Also, I think it's going to depend on your playoff bump, right? Like these I did before the playoffs. The Walker Buehler I saw pitch in the World Series looked a lot different than the Walker Buehler that I saw pitch before the playoffs. So it's just rectifying like what version of him you actually think you're getting. If you think that you're getting the guy who looked like he did against the Yankees, then I wouldn't be putting him at 79. I'd be moving him higher up. I didn't love what I saw from him during the regular season, so I wasn't really fully bought back in. I need to do that calculation in my head of like, okay, what was the difference? What do I really believe? Is it just the juice of the World Series or whatever?
Yeah, and also want to mention from the early data I've seen on Andrew Painter, I'm out. The four-seamer, what I've talked to, I'm out, yes. So there's two things. One, I saw Mike in the news, of course, Jeff Zimmerman, you got to read that article, saying that Andrew Painter might not even be pitching until June, which I made this ranking assuming that he is the SP5 for the Phillies because who is it? Otherwise, it's not. I can't believe they ruined Spencer Turnbull. I'm going to die on that hill that they just messed him up completely and got greedy and they messed that up. But, yeah, we got a teacher here, guys. This is a teacher, and he's practiced. Thank you so much. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Andrew Painter, his fastball that I saw was 96, 97, and the extension was terrible, 6.1. His IVB was under 15. He is a tall 6'7" guy with a low arm angle, but because he has low extension, that means that his release point is still really high, even though he has a low arm angle, which means he has a very steep angle on the pitch as well. Doesn't get flat, even though it's a low arm angle, so he gets the worst side of on a four-seamer of attack angle. You want to be flat, it's steep, and you also don't get the vert you would normally get for being up here. Because he's down here, so he doesn't have the spin efficiency, which makes it not as good of a fastball. That's bad. I was talking to James Anderson. He said, well, the main thing about the fastball for Painter was that his command is just so good. He was able to spot it around. It's not what they saw in the AFL. You obviously need to give him some slack. It's like his first couple starts. That is not really something that's expected now. That said, I was hoping to see an overpowering fastball that has all the pitch shape metrics that you want to feel like, oh, he can just live off this fastball and the secondaries, that new slider that he has, the harder one. I'm not seeing that now, and I hate buying into prospect pitchers really high in drafts unless they have an overwhelming fastball. I don't know if Painter necessarily has that, so I'm going to change that one. But, yeah, what are your guys here? You didn't have ranked Giolito. I understand that one. The injury.
No,
Rasmussen. Yep.
Giolito was just, I didn't have him ranked because of injury. And then the Rasmussen and Grant Holmes things are, as of right now, I just don't think they're going to be in the rotations at the start of the year.
Yeah, it's very possible. I just put him in that upside tier as well of like, I don't know, could happen right now. We've got a question over here. Yeah.
We have one last question, and then we're going to wrap it.
This is related to Giolito and Strider. They both had the same procedure, only a month apart. So I just feel like the gap that you have is 2 spots, and the gap that you have is 4. Yeah.
Yeah, mine is just honestly, when I did the ranking, I didn't even think about Lucas Giolito coming back and being healthy. So it's just a slip.
But you think about it. I mean, I would take Strider. I mean,
well,
I choose between the two, I have Strider.
I think making this, I actually had Giolito down with Yuri Perez.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I think there's a gap between it of like Giolito. I remember reading that like they're expecting him for the start of the year.
Okay.
And that is why I think I did that. But you're right. There should be a larger gap between Strider and Giolito than there is here. I don't know how the heck to do it. Because I'm all about bucketing different spots and everything, right? So like Noah Schultz and Andrew Painter, I think is going to move down. This is the very weird side of it. I feel like I'm in on Jackson Jobe, but like, am I in on Jackson Jobe? I don't know. Then you've got like Luzardo. What do you do with Luzardo?
Yeah.
I don't know. Dustin May, he should be in the rotation, I think. It gets weird.
The thing to keep in mind with Giolito, just because we're on him, Giolito, the Red Sox have an option, a $14 million option, team option for Giolito in 2026 that kicks in if he doesn't hit 140 innings next year. So a $14 million option for a healthy Giolito is a pretty good price. So there's a high incentive for the Red Sox to not throw Giolito 140 innings. So whether that's, hey, we're going to start you and then we'll ramp you down, or probably a team that thinks it's going to contend next year with the prospect elevation of guys like Roman Anthony or Kyle Teal or whatever. So it makes sense for the Red Sox to slow play Giolito, not put him in the rotation until June, have him be in the rotation for the rest of the year, have that cap at 130, 135, get him for 2026 for $14 million. So I think when you're ranking Giolito, and I would still, to be clear, I would still have him in the top 100, even with that being said. But when you're ranking Giolito or thinking about Giolito, I don't look at it as, oh, he's in a contract year, they're just going to throw him as many innings as possible, because there is that caveat where it actually benefits the Red Sox to not throw him a lot of innings. And so I think you're looking at like 120, 130 for Giolito if he's healthy.
It's almost like you're a Red Sox fan.
It's almost like I wrote that blurb for Roto World and I did that whole thing and I just double checked it right now. But we have taken up too much of your time. Thank you, everybody,
thank you guys for coming out,
for listening.
It was a great time. Hope you enjoyed your podcast.
If you are curious about any of the names that we didn't mention on here, what we're doing in the off season for the On the Corner podcast is going over all the players in order on the top 200 in chunks of 5.
Yeah.
They'll each be
20-minute
episodes.
So you'll be able
throughout.
to find it. It'll have the names of the guys we talk about inside the episodes, so you can hear them.
Well, they go to like 21 minutes, 22.
Yeah. No, but it really is.
I tried my best.
We got to record them all at once, and we don't have that amount of time, so we got to do that. But Eric, please, it's been great having you here at First Pitch Arizona.
Thank
first
you.
Time.
Happy to
It's
be
wonderful.
here. I'm Eric Samolsky, the Pelican.
I'm Nick Pollock, the Lion.
And we will see you on another no longer live episode of the On the Corner podcast.
Thank you all. Great questions.